you're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. It's what you do when somebody comes to you and says, no, that wasn't it. That's what matters. I've said dopey things. I've done dopey things. I still do. Gosh, I still do. And it's just what you do to fix it and to make it right. Because inclusion is about your mindset and about your mentality and about your mission. It's not about every little tiny action that you do.
This is the Rebel HR Podcast, the podcast where we talk to HR innovators about all things people leadership. If you're looking for places to find about new ways to think about the world of work, this is the podcast for you. Please subscribe from your favorite podcast listening platform today and leave us a review. Rebel on, HR Rebels. Welcome back, Rebel HR listeners. Extremely excited for the conversation this week. I'm just sitting here regretting that I didn't hit record like 10 minutes ago because Katherine and I have been having a great conversation. I can't wait to continue the conversation recorded here. So with us, we have Katherine McCord. She is the president of Titan Management, an organization that is focused on people and making sure that we are inclusive, innovative, and doing the right thing by our teams. Welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Well, I am super stoked to have you. And, I just am so honored to meet you. And I think that this is going to be a wonderful conversation. And we're very like-minded. I think our listeners are going to enjoy this. So I want to start off just by understanding a little bit more about you and your background. So who is Katherine McCord?
Frightening question. And you know what? I'm gonna really limit the answer so that I don't frighten your listeners away. So I run Titan Management. It's something that I started back in 2014 because I was working in the recruiting realm and decided, you know what? I love the work, but I don't love how it's being done by other people. So I struck out to do it better and to really also include with all of the talent acquisition aspect, a lot of the consulting, because I'd worked with startups for years and that type of thing. So I just kind of dove in, and inclusion matters very much to me. So we've been doing this now for over 8 years. I love every second of it. So we focus very much on the inclusion aspect. I've grown to really have a passion for neurodiversity specifically. And I developed an HR technology 2 years ago. I, who am completely technologically inept, designed and had developed out an HR tech that fires the resume and removes bias in the application process. And so basically who I am is I eat, live, and breathe by my 3 missions, which are integrity, inclusion, and innovation. And that's it. That's who I am.
Well, I love that. And I want to dive into that because I think it's really important to bring light to some of the challenges related to applicant tracking systems, specifically some of the biases that exist. So obviously you saw the need, despite maybe your tech savviness or lack thereof, went out and created this. So what motivated you to do that? What was the catalyst where you said, this is it, I'm just going to create my own thing?
I honestly, part of it was delirium because I was driving to the airport at 4:30 in the morning. And so part of it was just good old fashioned sleep deprived delirium. But ultimately the motivation behind all of it was that I've seen just for years, people struggle with applicant tracking systems, whether it's the neurodiverse community, just it not being conducive to their variations, whether it's applicants just being confused or tired. Did you know? So I'm gonna really call out Walmart on this one. So it takes an hour to apply to be a cashier at Walmart or a greeter at Walmart. Like an hour? You're going to mentally exhaust somebody for an hour of their life for that? Like, come on now. So just years of watching this and understanding that the resume causes more problems than it helps and that it solves. And so I decided that there needed to be something that was better than the resume, something that worked more effectively to help people align themselves with the job, and something that removed bias because, I mean, we're humans, we have biases in our brains, but we need to get rid of them.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that retailer specifically. It wasn't Walmart, but I worked for a much a very similar organization when I first started, and they had the exact same thing where you had to do a test. You had to fill in all of your information like 5 different times. And then even after all of that, then everybody got rated like red, yellow, green, so that on the recruiter side of it, all it was a name and red, yellow, green. And
you guys play red light, green light with candidates.
basically,
that's what I'm hearing.
exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And it's exactly what you said. Like at a certain point, it's like these are people. Like how can I rate them as a red, quote, red person based upon sitting and taking this ridiculous multiple choice test that I would probably fail.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, have you taken this? Do you know how you would do it this test? This is ridiculous. And I have such a thing. That could be a whole other show about my tirade on personality tests and assessments being used as a part of the application process. I think they have great value once somebody's hired to help you learn how to manage them, how to communicate with them, things like that. But it does not help for hiring a person. Learn how to interview, learn how to be good at your job. Maybe do that instead of putting all this pressure on these people whose job it is not to interview.
We probably don't have, that's a whole nother show, but like, I can tell you like those personality assessments, especially when it comes to like hiring, for me, I think it's a great way to make sure that you've got confirmation bias as a part of your hiring process.
Yes.
Right. That's what you're doing. Yeah. The hiring manager's like, oh, this person looks like my profile, so I like them.
Yeah,
right.
That's all
like
it is.
that's what you're doing.
It's completely counterproductive. You actually want people different than you when you hire. That's what I always have to try to teach people is no. You don't want 50 of the same, even if that person's really good at their job. For instance, I'm awesome. I always have been awesome at my job, but believe me when I tell you that you do not want 10 of me on a team. It would be awful. It would be a terrible, terrible experience.
Oh, I don't know about that, Catherine, but balance is important. That balance is important, right? So I think, it's a great pivot back to, the topic that we're actually supposed to be talking about, which is really like inclusion and being inclusive in the applicant tracking system. So, one of the things that you're passionate about is firing the resume. And so I want to understand a little bit more about, how does that mechanism work and how do you effectively screen and recruit without a resume?
Oh, that's a good question. So first of all, I want to start with saying very clearly that I understand why we had resumes, right? I know why they were a thing, but the problems with resumes are not even just things like you can tell gender, sometimes you can tell race, things like that. It's not even just that. So to your point about the personality assessments and how people look for the same, they do the same kind of thing with resumes, even down to, is this a font that I like? I've seen candidates rejected based on a font. Okay. We're not like, they weren't even using like wingdings. Okay. It was just, it was Arial instead of Times New Roman.
Times New Roman haters. Oh, it was Arial. Okay. Yeah.
It was, you're like, oh, you have a different bias. All right. That's something we can discuss. But so resumes just are inherently flawed and there's no right answer to them, right? There is no, this is how it ought to be done. So there's no real way to make a good resume, which is the biggest inherent flaw that they have. So when we were building out Titan ATS, and I say that because I can't code for crud, so somebody else had to actually code the darn thing. So when we were designing and building it out, one of the main things that we really looked at was that it needs to align you to the job, right? So you need to get to the heart of what people really need to know. And let's just be honest, we don't really care what you did in your past. We care what you could do for us when we're hired, right? So you need to help the person tie what they know how to do into the position. So everything in the system is geared towards that. So for instance, instead of just listing out your skills, which is super boring, the company says, okay, these are the main skills that we care about. Rate yourself. Where are you with these skills? And instead of just, tell us what you did at this job, it's what accomplishments did you have? What things did you do that tied you specifically to this position? And things like that. And then there's, you get to have like a creative headline and things like that, so that you see how the person thinks. Everything is geared towards who this person is, how they think, and how they can do the job that you need them to do.
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And you know, this is being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, you know the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
Fascinating. So it probably takes a little bit longer if I'm a candidate to apply through this system. Do you find that that's a barrier at all for some, or is that not really an issue?
Horribly. So I had a lot of different people dive into it, and I said, tell me honestly, I just go in here and apply. I sent it to just random people that I knew were out looking for jobs. And I said, here, apply. Just tell me what you think. And they go, this is really cool. I like it. And the longest anybody told me it took them to fill it out was 7 minutes. And that was somebody who typed everything, didn't copy paste anything, didn't parse anything out, just typed it out. And it only took 7 minutes. So I was like, okay, I feel like that's still reasonable. The average time was just under 5 minutes.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. So I feel like that's an okay amount of time to dedicate to something. Like, it's not just click and apply. I realize click and apply has its appeals, trust me. But if it gives you a better chance to align yourself to the job, I feel like the extra time is actually going to be more productive for the candidates.
No, yeah, it's really interesting. And I almost think about it like it's almost another screening mechanism where, you're kind of screening how interested in the job the individual is if they're willing to invest.
Right, without going
5
overboard,
minutes.
without giving them an hour long or making them be redundant. Like, here, give me your resume and then tell me everything that was already in the resume, which is completely stupid.
Yeah.
Just, if you're getting a resume, please don't ask for anything else. Just stop. But so there's that aspect. Also, the system gives more power back to the candidates. So before the company can see their email and their phone number and actually call them, the company can message them in the masked system without seeing their name or anything like that. But then the candidate decides, yes, I'm ready to move forward. And we got a lot of very positive feedback from that because the candidates felt like they mattered again. Like, oh yeah, I really do have a say. I really, this is something that, yes, I actually do want to pursue. Thank you for checking with me first.
That's awesome. What's so interesting about that approach, and I'm sure this is part of the reason that you do it this way, is that then you're actually measuring people equally and giving the similar weight to different aspects of somebody's experience versus what somebody thinks you want to see on their resume.
Yes.
Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. So it's absolutely, and I knew you would hit on that. So it's absolutely designed to help you look at the same markers for every candidate, because you can't do that with a resume. You absolutely cannot. So with this, it gives you a lot more level playing field and it makes it a lot more even. So it removes the bias, it properly highlights everybody, and it just keeps everything on a much more even keel, which I think is really important in your hiring. I always tell people, don't be scripted in interviews or in your approach to candidates, but also collect the same information. Keep it on the same level playing field for everybody.
Absolutely. And there's also, not to put on my HR compliance hat, but there's also an aspect of equity there.
Yes.
So, if somebody were to come back and say, hey, that they didn't hire me because of X reason, you've got a really clear, rationale that no, we look at everybody the same.
Yes. And here it is. And also to that point. So another thing that's very big to me personally, and this was a little bit controversial, is I don't believe in collecting ADA and EEOC information. And for anybody that doesn't know that's listening, so that's things like your gender, your racial identity, whether or not you have a disability, in association with an applicant. So I believe in collecting the data for your own purposes, but I believe in doing it anonymously and also in doing it a little bit more accurately. So I don't know if you've ever looked at those questions, but they're extremely discriminatory. I think our government is giving instructions on how to discriminate, basically. So even with the ethnicity, there's whole ethnicities left off, just not even there. They're automatically assuming that someone that has ADHD or dyslexia or whatever other diagnosis feels like they're disabled, which is super
Right.
rude. So I've had candidates tell me, they're like, I don't know which answer is lying and which answer is honest, because yes, I have this condition, but no, I'm not disabled. So I don't know how to answer this. And it's very stressful. And then there's always the perception from candidates that they're being discriminated against with those questions. Now, honestly, you and I both know that most of the time they're not even looked at, but it's still the perception. And now people have gotten weird. Have you seen some of these new applications? What they're doing? Oh, you're gonna love this. Oh, this is my new soapbox. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. So the new fad is to ask someone's sexuality, their age range, it gets better. Hold on. What their disability is, very specifically, and then to ask some of these questions more than once in more than one different way. What? No one is asking for this. Please stop. It is not inclusive. It is not helpful. Please stop.
Yeah. What's your birthday and political affiliation, right?
Yeah.
Like where do we stop?
Yeah, like
come on.
Come on. Oh God. I saw one that asked about your religion, all of this. I'm like, oh no. God, please stop. So first of all, you're gonna get sued doing that. So please
don't do that.
For two HR folks here to the rest of you out there, please don't do it. Second of all, because you're going to give all of your HR people heart attacks. Second of all, if you want to be inclusive, the better way to do that is A, to do it anonymously, and B, to do it a lot more generically. So the way that you ask those questions is do you identify as neurodiverse? Do you identify as physically diverse? Do you identify as religiously diverse? Period. You do not. If somebody could look at you and say that's none of your business, don't ask the question, especially not in your application form. For the love of God, stop.
Just don't do it. Don't. Yeah, I missed that trend, but I'm glad I missed it. And
it's still going on. It's getting worse.
I don't understand. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, what would the rationale be? Like, maybe somebody's trying to be inclusive by gathering this information to the intent is there, like it's a positive intent, but like I see nothing but bad happening.
It's all bad. Nobody likes it. Literally no one appreciates this. It's awful. I've spoken to everybody I could find who has seen this, and they're going, oh my God, no, this is awful. And I can't cope with this. Like, this has got to stop. And every employment law person I know is just like in panic about it. They're like, oh no, please stop doing this.
The lawsuits are going to be pretty fascinating when they all come out.
I'm waiting for them because it's going to be glorious. Because it's just like, what were you thinking? So I know that. So my point in going into that is that sometimes people do things with the attempt to be inclusive without understanding inclusivity. And inclusivity is not somebody having to tell you their life story just to get a job, okay? And inclusivity is not you being nosy into other people's lives. It's just simply saying, it's cool that you're different than us. In fact, we like that. We're going to embrace you the way that you are. Period. That's
right.
The end of it.
Please, like hard stop. Leave it there.
Hard stop. Yes. Hard stop. This is the line. It's like a brick wall that you just hit right at the end of that sentence. And that's where it stops. And I've had people go, well, what about like asking pronouns and all this? I said, and I always tell people it's very simple. You just say, when you're inviting somebody to an interview or what have you, hey, what would you like us to know? Or something along those lines. You keep it very, very vague. You don't, we're here, we love to accommodate, here's some accommodations that we offer. Please let us know if there's anything else we can do for you, that type of thing. Just very, and I always say, I think of accommodations because I'm a Southerner, and I think, oh yay, I get to accommodate my guest and have the tea that they like and have the, the whatever muffins or whatever else we serve in Southern parties. And I really said crumpets, but that's a British thing.
Crumpets, I think like cornbread. I don't know what is it. I don't know. I'm a Northerner. I'm above the Mason-Dixon. I don't know.
But no, cornbread at a tea party. There you go. But no, like have pie and that kind of thing. Like that's how I think of it. And so it's a very positive affiliation. But I've seen other people say that it's performance enhancers. They don't even call them accommodations anymore. It's performance enhancers because it helps. Then I'm like, see, you made that.
Now it's
But then I
weird.
think something else. Yeah. But then I'm like, huh. Are we not hearing the other problem with this new name?
Well, it's so funny you bring that up because so my organization, we're international, we're all over the world, 11 different countries. And so we wanted to do this. We wanted to get some demographic data because we want to have diversity goals. We want to have KPIs. We want to truly measure ourselves against ourselves year over year. How are we doing, right? So we put out this survey, and stupid me, I thought, well, we'll just use the standard EEOC classifications, and that's the type of data that we'll use. Well, I can't tell you how many people reached out and they're like, I don't fit into one of these boxes. Like this isn't me. Right? Like I don't even have, there's not even a box for me, and it was a great eye-opening experience, and we kind of abandoned that plan pretty quickly. And
good, but good for you.
I'm confident enough to say, well, we kind of screwed up with how we did that. But it was pretty eye-opening. It's like people are like, I don't identify this. Like, what is this? This is weird, and in the back of my head, I was like, well, that's what I get for relying on a U.S. government
don't
approach.
Listen to the government.
Well, now we're going a whole different direction. But we can go libertarian HR if we want to. We can go.
But you know what? It's but you know what though? It's so funny because I have a lot of people that are so afraid to make those mistakes that I talk to all the time. They're like, no, you're gonna botch it, and it's okay. Like, don't worry about when it goes wrong. Worry about then fixing it to make it right.
Yeah.
And maybe let people know, hey, this is our first attempt. So if you have feedback, please tell us. It's like your people did. They obviously were comfortable enough, which by the way means that you're building a strong culture. So kudos to you. They felt comfortable to come to you and talk about, hey, no, this isn't really the thing. So go at it as generally as you can, be as inclusive as you can, research, ask the right people, make the efforts. But even then, it's still not going to be right. Trust me. 2 years into building this gosh darn technology, and I still have people come to me sometimes and go, hey, you should really do this because of this. And every step of the way, we've had people from every group I could possibly find looking at it, giving ideas, giving feedback, but you still have to go back and circle back. So I think it's a lot of like, don't get bummed out.
Hang in there. You're going to screw up. But isn't that what inclusion is all about?
Yes.
Right?
It is actually. Yes. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. It's what you do when somebody comes to you and says, no, that wasn't it. That's what matters. I've said dopey things. I've done dopey things. I still do. Gosh, I still do. And it's just what you do to fix it and to make it right. Because inclusion is about your mindset and about your mentality and about your mission. It's not about every little tiny action that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're all imperfect, right? And we're all different from each other, even if it's what we would call a quote, invisible, different, right? Like we've just got to figure out a way to work together and to build those types of resilient organizations that can operate in the world that we operate in, right?
Absolutely.
That's what it's all
and
about.
It works better. I have people ask me too, like, why does inclusion actually matter? And from everything to understanding your customer base better, because your customer base is going to be diverse, to the fact that when people are allowed to work in a way that's natural to their brain, they're more productive. So if you let that person who has auditory sensitivity issues have on noise canceling headphones, or play that ADHD person play with a fidget spinner, or have somebody who has migraines or whatever else have one of those things that darkens the screen for you, have a dyslexic person or a person with dyslexia, whatever their preferred terminology is, have an app that helps them to better read. Great. The work's going to get done better, faster.
Right.
You're going to have more options, a lot more productivity. So being inclusive is just also good business. It's good ethics and it's good business simultaneously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen that firsthand where, there have been some wonderful employees that just need a little bit of an accommodation. And
Yeah.
that, it's funny. It's funny the context of accommodation, down south. Like in the HR circles, at least that I run around, and accommodation's almost like it's like a scary word, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, they dropped
Yeah.
the ADA thing. Now, drop
No.
everything, forget how to be a human, and panic and follow this like rigid, archaic, interactive process chart. And, but whatever you do, document everything and act like a lawyer with no heart, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, no,
Jesus.
it shouldn't be that hard, right?
No. Make
Like,
them a standard. Make them standard options. Just here. What
yeah,
do you need to function?
right.
Voila. There you go.
I think it's as complicated as this. How can I help? Right? I mean, just and open the door. And I've done that so many times, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen this. When you do that, what you find out is that typically that accommodation for that individual is really beneficial for others.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like handicap ramps to walk into the
Oh,
buildings.
and by the way, oh God, you're about to get me off on a whole other tangent. So, okay. So please, folks, if you are building a building, if you are, planning interviews and all this, be mindful of physical accessibility. So here's what I mean. Don't have somebody walk like a mile after they enter the building for their interview if it could possibly be avoided. And you may not know what somebody's, physical ability is. So just don't have the interviews in the back corner of the building if you can help it. Also, when you're designing a building and all that, put the ramps next to the door and have the handicap spaces next to the ramps. Duh. But somehow this is not a common thing. So be, and when you're one thing too, when you're sending out interview invitations, send out your accessibility information. That's something a lot of people don't think of. That's actually very, very helpful. So just go ahead and tell people, hey, this is where the elevators are. This is where the ramps are. This is, and just have it be a link where they can just click and see it if they need to see it. Also have a list of other accommodations that you can offer. Maybe no contact interviews. That's a really big one. A lot of people don't want to be touched, especially now that we've had COVID. That's even a bigger thing now than it was before. That also means no eye contact. That some people, they actually focus better if they're not looking at you. So they will actually answer you better questions. It doesn't mean that they make eye contact. It just means that when they're really thinking that they want to say something really smart, they might kind of look off to the side or look down. And that's something that is not a big deal. So why not just offer that? Say, hey, we offer no contact interviews. Bam.
Well, absolutely. And I've got two points on that I want to share. So no, to your point, I think on the physical, the physical accommodations, like the actual, facility. I have an acquaintance who just a great human being, worked in a law firm for years. She had to leave the law firm just to use the restroom because the restroom was not handicap accessible, and she was wheelchair bound, right, for years. And it was because it was built before some period in time, so it was grandfathered in, so they didn't have to do it. But at the end of the day, like, just do it. Like just spend a couple $1,000s to make that bathroom accessible for everybody, and that's just the right thing to do. So that's
absolutely,
that's my PSA
absolutely.
there. The other one I would say is here's another dirty secret of HR. Interviews are terrible at predicting how good somebody's going to be in their job.
Yes. Thank you.
So if somebody stares you in the eye or not during an interview, which I actually don't like somebody who's like keeping a bunch of eye contact all the time. Like, what do you kind of freak me out?
Stare, like somebody that wouldn't quit staring at you?
Yeah, that's worse. I'd much rather have the person looking at their paper the whole time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I thought someone's going to be great because they had a great interview. And it turns out they were just a really good communicator in an interview, but just a terrible team player and not great at the job we put them in. And then I've had people who have been absolutely atrocious at interview communication and come in and just knock our socks off in their job, and we've got to be honest. Like, we're not as good as we think we are in interview.
No. And I will tell you too, like, my husband's a perfect example of that. I've never seen someone who's a better worker than him ever in any field, in anything. He's incredible, and he's been incredible in every job he's ever had. And he's a horrible interview. Horrible. It's gotten better since he's done some recruiting, but he's really just not a good interview, but he is a remarkable worker. And I will tell you too, so this is another one that I tell all of my clients is it's not the candidate's job to be good at interviewing. It's yours.
Mm.
You're
Oh,
the
I love that.
professional interviewer.
It's
You be
yours.
good at it. It doesn't matter if they suck at it. You be good at it. That's your job. And to help them showcase themselves and to help them at best align with the position. That is your job. So do it. Get in there and help them out. Don't sit there and go, well, they weren't a good interview. Well, they're not supposed to be. Are you hiring, unless you're hiring them to be a recruiter, then maybe. But unless that's the case, what possible difference does it make?
I love that. I love that. And that leads us to what I'm going to name this podcast episode, which is just simply don't suck.
Don't suck. Don't be shitty.
Don't be
just
shitty.
Don't do it. It's the same thing with inclusion. People go like, well, what's your number one tip? Don't be shitty. It's really easy. Don't look at somebody and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make you be uncomfortable because this is just how I like things. Calm
That's
down.
Pretty shitty. Yeah.
It's pretty shitty. Yeah. Just be a human freaking being. And if somebody wants an accommodation, don't make them jump through hoops or go to Mars for it. Just go, how can I help? To your point, how can I help?
Yeah,
the end.
Absolutely.
Don't be shitty.
I'm with you. I'm going to put that. So my next leadership training when I, for like people who are interviewing up that, I'm going to put, that's going to be the name of it. And I'm probably going to get the most attendance at any training event that I've ever had if I name it that. So
do it.
Hot tip.
Don't be shitty. I did a training called Fire the Asshole and it worked. And people came.
That could do it. Yeah. Be a little irreverent. All right. It's okay. Within reason. I don't want anybody to get fired because they said, hey, on this podcast, I heard that I should do this. And so I'm calling it Don't Be Shitty. And then,
and now they got
and then
fired.
the general counsel comes into your office the next,
do consult legal. Let's put that caveat. Consult legal first. Thank you. In fact, you know what? Do that before you create your job application process. So that way you don't put something weird on your job application.
Even better. Don't, again, that don't be shitty. I like it.
Don't be shitty.
Okay.
It's very simple.
With that in mind, I think we're gonna put a punctuation mark. We're gonna shift gears into the Rebel HR Flash Round, and we've already been talking about this. This is just going to be a natural lead-in. So, first question: where does HR need to rebel?
HR needs to rebel in that we need to go back to being the voice that talks back to the company on behalf of the humans, not the other way around. Like, yes, we do need to look out for and protect the company, but also we need to be the ones going back to management saying, no, this sucks. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it now.
I love that. And that, I actually think that's a lot harder to do than
for most people. I was born aggressive, so it's not for us.
Yeah, me too. I never struggle with that. But for many of us, you're always trying to kind of walk the line, right? Like, well, am I representing the company? Am I representing the employee? And
but you know what that comes back to? Integrity.
Yeah. 100%.
Integrity.
100%. Don't be shitty. All right.
Don't be shitty.
Question number 2. Who should we be listening to?
Oh, God. You know what? I'm going to give some shout outs to some amazing human beings that I know, we talked about Tara Furiani before the show. Everybody should listen to Not the HR Lady. Alan Ivinson with Wisdom You Didn't Ask For, but Now You Can't Live Without. Definitely check out Alan Ivinson. He is absolutely extraordinary. He's one of my guiding lights. So I'm going to give a shout out to those two incredible humans.
Awesome. And you have a couple of publications. You want to?
I have two shows.
Yeah, a few shows.
I have Career Launch Live, which is all things people. We do a lot of top row leadership and inclusion. It's Fridays at 10 a.m. And then I also have my kind of new favorite baby. It's Super Mania Show. We talk everything neurodiversity and mental health. That is Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. And so join us and find your tribe of fellow neurodiverse weirdos.
Absolutely. Love that. I love it. Last question. How can our listeners connect with you?
Oh, LinkedIn. I am all over LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Come talk to me, ask questions, whatever it is. If you want an introduction, I swear I know everybody. Go ahead and reach out. I am always here to connect and to help. Katherine McCord, I think I'm like the only one with my spelling on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And we'll have that link in the show notes. Open up your podcast player. And then the website, if you want to learn more about Titan Management, is titanmanagementusa.com. We'll also have that link. So definitely going to check it out. If you're in the market for an applicant tracking system, I would encourage you take a look. Think about it.
Titan ATS.
There you go. Love it. Katherine, this has been an absolute joy. Just really appreciate you spending some time with us and Rebel On.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.